I think one of the biggest things with SB4 is, just specifically how, local law enforcement sees it being implemented here at a local level. What can people expect? Can you just give us a rundown?
I think Sheriff Larry Smith said it very well last week that nothing is going to change. It's going to be the same day. So March 5th would be the same regular day as it is today on the 13th of February. They have their procedures that they do once someone is arrested. And as far as our local agency here at the City of Tyler, it will remain the same.
And, going deeper into that, I know one of the things about SB4 is that it would allow local law enforcement to have, the authority that once federal officers had, which is, to, question and detain anyone they suspect of, maybe having entered the U.S. illegally. Is there any situation you see that specific part of SB4 playing a role here?
Well, in that Chapter 51 of the Penal Code, it does say port of entry. The City of Tyler does not have a port of entry, so we don't have reason to suspect anyone, crossing the border illegally. So no, nothing will change. I mean, there is the law there, but as far as reaching it to East Texas, I don't think we will run into that situation.
And, I know last week there was that Facebook Live meeting, and we were just kind of trying to differentiate kind of what people should expect, just kind of like on a normal basis. What can people expect? Let's say if they have a broken taillight, or it's just kind of like a regular stop. What kind of identification forms or questions can people in those scenarios expect to be asked by an officer?
Right. So any traffic stop or anything that a law enforcement officer here in the City of Tyler does, either reporting to a 911 call or non-emergency, or even a traffic stop that we do, especially someone operating a motor vehicle in the state of Texas, you are required to have a license to operate a motor vehicle. So when one does a traffic stop, an officer is going to require someone to identify themselves either by the driver's license. We understand that sometimes people don't have a driver's license due to suspension, or because their identification has been suspended and they can't get a driver's license. So we understand that. But one has to identify themselves with their name, their date of birth, and their address, as well as that. Any kind of proof of information that they have, sometimes they have passports that they provide to us, or their insurance, something that we can identify that person behind the wheel.
And going further into those identification forms that are a viable form to present to an officer, we talked about driver's license, a passport. Are there any other forms that would be accepted by an officer?
Yeah, we try to identify the driver as much as we can. Sometimes they have matriculas that we see, but anything with their identification that we can verify that this person is the one driving. So definitely never giving a false information, providing us with your name, address, and date of birth.
And what scenarios would constitute for an officer to ask for, let's say, a little bit more information? I don't know, like Social Security. I know, you were talking about sometimes when it's like a DWI and above, those constitute a little more.
Right. Sometimes when it does become to the process of investigation, we are going to require a little bit more information, especially when someone is arrested. They require the Social Security and go on from there, just because it's the process that it has to, or that person has to go through when they are arrested. And sometimes, yes, proof of Social Security. And if we can't find an identification, right, the jail does the fingerprinting and all that to identify that person.
Could you lay a couple examples just for viewers of, what scenarios they, that could constitute, what we just talked about?
Right. So anything, at the state of Texas, we have misdemeanors, like either Class C, which would be just a regular violation, you run a red light or anything like that. But then we fall into the Class Bs, which are arrestable offenses. Driving with a suspended license with previous convictions, a DWI is the main one. Possession of marijuana, we go into the Class Bs, and obviously the Class A's with family violence, and then we go into the felonies, which are arrestable offenses.
And, you know, there is, and I want you to address this in terms of whether it's a misconception or not, and how that would be also enforced here. You know, the part of SB4 that talks about, you know, the human smuggling, or the immigrant smuggling, and you know, here I know there have been people who have, you know, questioned, it's like, well, what if there's a mother that is driving her, you know, immigrant mom, let's say to and back from work, and, you know, they get stopped, you know, by, let's say, a traffic violation or something like that. Is there any worry or concern that, you know, a scenario like that should cause in terms of, you know, maybe, you know, the daughter or the mom, you know, being in some sort of scenario where they're in danger of, you know?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah. There shouldn't be any worry, because during the traffic stop, we're not going to be asking for citizenship status or anything like that. That is not our job to ask, you know, for their citizenship. We're doing our job to keeping this city safe and building that relationship with the people here in the city of Tyler. So we're never going to, during a traffic stop, ask for any, you know, proof of citizenship. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to keep the community safe, build that trust and relationship with the community, and move forward.
Yeah, and you know, elaborating more into, you know, I know we've talked about how it's going to be enforced here, and you said, you know, not really much of a change. Why is that? I mean, why has, you know, your department decided to kind of move forward in that direction, and what is the impact you hope to have with that?
Our priority here for our police department, right, is to build that community relation, that community, I guess, this is how we're going to prevent crime, is by having that relationship, having our citizens trust us and their full trust to report crime, and keeping the city safe. So that is our #1 priority.
And, you know, if there is something you would want, you know, the community to get out of this, you know, what would be, you know, the main thing you would want them to take away from this interview, from
Right,
you know, from
right.
what we've been talking about? I mean, what's the main
For
message?
sure. The main message is that our police department's #1 priority is to build that community relation, to keep Tyler safe, for people to feel comfortable to come to us and report crimes, and just work together to make the community safer, to make the Smith County safer, and that's our #1 priority.
And I just thought about another question to elaborate into. So, you know, I know we talked about, you know, obviously the requirement is, you know, in any of these situations, you know, showing driver's license. If someone were to not have one, what is the typical proceeding following, you know, let's say you, like I said, regular traffic stop, and, you know, you find out that someone doesn't necessarily have that form of identification, or, yeah, that form. What's the process afterwards?
So, like I said, we try to identify that person behind the wheel, and we require, if you don't have a driver's license, obviously it's a violation of the state of Texas, and you can be cited for not having a driver's license. And that is all to the discretion of that officer. The state of Texas gives us the discretion to either give someone a citation for that violation or not. So our main priority is to make sure that that person behind the wheel, you know, isn't someone with outstanding warrants or anything, and has full potential to operate that vehicle. So that's our #1 priority, is to identify them. And, you know, if we have policy as well, let's say they don't have a driver's license and they don't have insurance, you know, that requires that your vehicle might get towed. But other than that, not having a driver's license might lead to just getting a citation for not having a driver's license to operate that motor vehicle.